Hello, and welcome aboard the Gallant Says podcast on this Sunday, November 12th of 2023, live at youtube.com/Paul Gallant and twitch.tv/Gallant Says. New schedule, Sunday after whenever the Houston Texans play, Monday around 6 o'clock Central, Thursday around 6 o'clock Central, or after Monday Night Football / after Thursday Night Football. Paul, why can't you commit to a schedule? Shut up! You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. If you don't want to see my rather handsome face that is wearing battle red sunglasses, that is wearing a Houston Texans starter jacket, hit me, Clay Walker. How about those Houston football Texans who took down the Cincinnati Bengals a couple of hours ago on the road, a red-hot Bengals team that had won 4 games in a row, quarterbacked by Joe Burrow, on that winning streak, victories against teams like the San Francisco 49ers, the Buffalo Bills, and your Houston Texans won this game. Statement W. And, I mean, if we're being honest, this is a game that for a very, very long period of time, the Texans were downright kicking the Bengals' asses. Just take a look at the numbers at the end of the game. We start with C.J. Stroud, who's throwing for 356 yards and continues to make explosive plays happen. Pretty interesting to hear on the broadcast from Kevin Harlan that the Houston Texans are number 1 in the NFL when it comes to explosive plays, especially considering all the bitching that we did about the lack thereof for about a month. Things changed pretty quickly in that game against the Buccaneers starting in the second half. Look at the running game. They actually ran the football well, and it was by doing something old school, giving the ball to one guy the whole fucking game. Devin Singletary, take a bow. 30 carries for 150 yards. That is an old school stat line. Noah Brown, 7 catches for 172 yards. And then you just take a look at what the defense did to Joe Burrow, who did have some big plays. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the game. But they sacked him 4 times. Sheldon Rankins had 3 of them. They intercepted 2 of his passes, one of them in the end zone by Shaquille Griffin. They hit him 9 times as well. And how can you not be just extremely satisfied walking around with a shit-eating grin on your face? I mean, this is one of those wins that sort of legitimizes the Texans as relevant. And I know we're all sensitive to it, but that is the reality of rooting for a team that has struggled for a long period of time. No one's going to fucking care unless you win a big game. And I had my doubts about the Texans' ability to win this game, and especially after the first drive where Cincinnati was doing whatever it wanted on offense. But from there on out, the Texans, that offense, it cooked. C.J. Stroud is just a pleasure to watch. And there were a bunch of moments in this game that you can look at and just think to yourself, wow. But some of the plays that he creates by extending and doing some stuff that I saw from former Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson when I was in Seattle, extending plays, doing spin moves, essentially running figure 8s behind the line of scrimmage. It's rare to see quarterbacks do that. I mean, if you have eyeballs and you've watched these games, you know the guy is tremendously special. And some of the plays that he extended in this game, I'm at a loss. I mean, shit, this game, not for a couple of drops down the stretch. This game for C.J. Stroud could have been another 400-plus yard passing performance. He is so damn good, and you know what? It's going to sound premature in the eyes of maybe people who don't live in the city of Houston, but, I mean, you can't deny that right now C.J. Stroud isn't just the best rookie quarterback in the game. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the game, period, right now. Definitely top 15. Top 10, I'd like to hear an argument to put him outside of the top 10. I don't think it's going to be very good, other than it'll be, well, he had that couple of game stretch where the offense didn't do anything. But what do you say after these back-to-back games? There is recency bias here. Top 5, I'll hear it. I'll hear it. What quarterbacks would you definitely take over him right now for one game? Patrick Mahomes, probably. Joe Burrow, I think after this game, there are some Texans fans who would say, well, I'd take CJ Stroud over him. And you're right. I still, with the body of work in Joe Burrow, even though he did have a couple of bad mistakes in this game today, one of them that bounced off a receiver's hands and was intercepted. But I would take those two guys over Stroud right now. That's really it. I think you could make an argument for Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts is on a great team. I think that's helping him out a lot right now. But who else is better than CJ Stroud with what we have seen this season? And especially just the growth from week 1 to where we're at now. I mean, it's been every single week you've seen a little improvement in some area. I thought today showed some toughness. There's that one play where he fell on his shoulder. You were wondering if he was going to be hurt. Probably also thought the same thing, too, when he threw that ball to Tank Dell, and Dell just got absolutely destroyed. I can't believe Dell stayed in the game. There are a couple of throws that he maybe put behind people, but I mean, he just is nails in that pocket, extending plays, the accuracy, and look who he's doing this with. I mean, Nico Collins, their leading receiver, isn't in the game. And again, credit to Noah Brown, who's been awesome the last couple of weeks. But did you think Noah Brown was going to be able to pick up the load when it comes to the passing game? I mean, he did it pretty much all by himself. Last 2 weeks, Noah Brown, 13 catches for 325 yards. What in the actual fuck? That's crazy. In a good way. Woo. But he's making this work, much like Joe Burrow was on the other sideline. Did you recognize any of those Bengals receivers? Obviously, Jamar Chase, who had the big 64-yard touchdown, and Tyler Boyd, who had that drop. Things might have been a little bit differently if he caught that pass. We'll talk about it later. But who the fuck is Trenton Irwin? Who is Tanner Hudson? I don't know who those guys are. Burrow makes them look good. But CJ Stroud is making it work with Noah Brown, with John Mechie. There was a throw to Xavier Hutchinson. It was dropped. He's making it work with skill players who are afterthoughts in most NFL circles. No offense to them. Let's read some comments here. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant or Twitch.tv/Gallant says. King of all Twitches. Damn it. I will admit it now. The Texans defense is awesome. Oh, and the rookie is good too. I'm not going to go so far as to say the defense is awesome, but the defense played great today. Diane Davidson. What about the touchdown called back? Thank you for reminding me. Forgot about that. CBS has got to be better with the camera work. The only angle that we had of Robert Woods running along the back line of the end zone was from so far away. The camera work on the actual touchdown pass itself was a little bit spotty. Felt like they were jumping around a little bit. I felt like I didn't see what happened on that play at all. I don't know, honestly, after review, whether or not there was clear evidence that Woods stepped out of bounds, but usually those referees on the back line do know what they're doing in that spot. More comments here. Twitch.tv/Gallant says, today was the first game that CJ Stroud even had a running game. Right you are. Part of that, I think, is because of who the Bengals defense is. They have allowed big gains on the ground this year. But the other part of it is, too, you got to give the Texans some credit for saying, you know what, fuck it, we're just going to run on them. And still throw, but we're going to run. And I know a lot of people don't want to be conservative online. Well, maybe you want to be conservative after the way that this game ended. But let's go back to CJ Stroud in just a moment. Some more comments. Bleed Blue, Twitch.tv/Gallant says, great job, D'Amico. We're Deuce, YouTube.com/Paul Gallant says, got ticks to next week's game. How hype do you think it'll be? I haven't been to a game when they were good in a long time. Yeah, it would have had to be the 2019 season, probably. I remember in 2018, the Texans won, fucking 9 games in a row? 9 games in a row. And people were still not really buying in. But If you were there for the Bucs game, I got to say, crowd was pretty loud. The real question is going to be for this game against the Cardinals, are the Cardinals the kind of team that's going to get a bunch of Houston Texans fans to come back to the stadium and pay for tickets, parking, concessions? That is my only caveat. I do think that it will be a bumping atmosphere for Sunday's game against the Cardinals because at the very least, people have hope. And you saw it in that game, in that Bucs game. And the Texas players even talked about it afterwards. It was rather loud, despite a stadium that was not that full. Much more full. By the way, I went to an MLS Cup soccer game. Holy shit, no one was there. No one was there at, what's the stadium called? Shell Oil? Downtown Houston? I went to the Dynamo game last night, and the Dynamo won. They advanced, but no one was there. I was shocked by how empty that stadium was. It was a bummer. More comments. Tiff comments. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. The refs did all they could to penalize the Texans. Well, here's the thing with the Texans. I mean, they are one of the most penalized teams in the NFL. 7 penalties for 50 yards. I will gladly take that, just compared to the last couple of weeks. King of all Twitches is saying he's a lifelong Texans fan. Definitely not that guy. You are definitely not that guy, King of all Twitches. But hey, welcome back. Welcome back to the bandwagon. So if you're going to make an argument for somebody else as MVP over CJ Stroud right now, it's going to be difficult. Here's why. Now, based off of last I looked with, I don't know, what time was it? Like about 4:30 or so on NFL.com. Stroud is number 1 in the NFL in passing yards with 2,626 yards. He is third in yards per attempt behind Tua Tagovailoa and Brock Purdy. He's tied for 5th in passing touchdowns, which maybe gets held against him. But he has the fewest interceptions among quarterbacks who have started the whole year, which is truly incredible. And honestly, he has been very fortunate on some of the balls that just popped straight up in the air, whether it's on a pass that gets deflected or it's on a pass that goes off of a Texans receiver's hand. He has been very fortunate. The football gods have, for whatever reason, decided, you know what, some of these almost interceptions aren't going to be interceptions. And that's huge. It was huge today. I mean, there could have been at least one more interception, if not 2. So the stats for Stroud are good. The Texans have a winning record. They're 5-4. And most importantly, Stroud has won a big game. And yeah, this is a measuring stick game. Some games matter more than others. I'm a big believer in that. I'm a big believer in that in baseball, big believer in that in football. Some games matter so much more than the others. And obviously, it doesn't necessarily translate to the playoffs, as we saw with the Astros against the Rangers. Those games are huge, but the results in the regular season didn't really translate into the postseason. I'm just saying that people start paying attention to you when you win those games against a team like Cincinnati, who's obviously really good. I mean, they've been here for a while. I suppose you could poke some holes in them. Their run defense has clearly got some issues. And, you know, Sam Hubbard on the defensive line seemed to hurt them a little bit. No T. Higgins. If they had T. Higgins, I do wonder how the Texans defense would have looked. But you win games like this, people start to take notice. So the guys that you would maybe argue as being more of an MVP than CJ Stroud right now are, 1, Jalen Hurts. He would have won the award last year if not for a shoulder injury. The Eagles are the lone one-loss team in the NFL, 8-1. But his team around him is really good. And he's got great receivers that he's throwing to, and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. The defense on the other side for Philadelphia is really good. So that can be used as an argument against him. Patrick Mahomes just won the MVP, and there can be NFL MVP fatigue like there is sometimes in the NBA where it's so hard for guys to win it multiple times. But over the last 2 games, Mahomes hasn't blown people away. A sub-50 QBR in those last 2 games, one of them against Miami in Germany. And then, of course, the other one where the Broncos really kicked his ass. So Mahomes is like stock down right now. Is that going to continue the rest of the year? No, Mahomes is, I still think, the best quarterback in the game. And the other guy you could maybe put in the argument would have been Tua Tagovailoa because of the numbers he's put up, because of the way that the Dolphins' offense has looked. but the losses to Buffalo, to Philadelphia, to Kansas City, all the measuring stick games that the Dolphins have played, they have lost them. Texans have only played in one, unless you want to say the Jaguars game is, because the Jaguars all of a sudden are playing well outside of today. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess you can't. You still, the Jaguars are just frauds, man. They're just frauds. But anyway, bring it back to this. They win a measuring stick game, and Tua doesn't have any of those. So I don't think there is an argument that anybody can make for another quarterback over CJ Stroud as MVP in the NFL right now. I don't think there is an argument to be made. Running back isn't getting the award. Wide receiver isn't getting the award. It always goes to a quarterback, barring historic seasons by a player at running back, and that's really it. And that's just not going to happen. It's Stroud's to lose right now, but obviously there's a lot of season left. As someone who has covered MVPs of the first half of the year, Russell Wilson in 2019 and 2020, both of those years, he looked like an MVP candidate. And then the second half of the season happened, and he wasn't the same guy. I think the good news is, though, it does feel like C.J. Stroud went through that proverbial rookie wall in those 3 games against the Falcons, Saints, and Panthers. Felt like those 3 games in a row, like, oh, no, what's going on here? Why is the Texans offense not able to get anything going? But these last 2 games, man, he's just been fucking awesome. More comments, youtube.com/Paul Gallant, twitch.tv/Gallant says, Daniel Ramirez says, yeah, no, Mike, T. Higgins and Mike Evans, you are a Houston Texan. Yeah, they're free agents this offseason. You're right. Sim Sam says, gotta say, I've not felt this good about the Houston Texans since Deshaun was getting massaged. I mean, shit, like, it was bad for the Texans before all of that came to light, right? Like, that was an after the 2020 season disaster. Eric Denson, we finally have an elite quarterback in Houston for the first time. CJ for MVP. I do think we have to put some respect on Deshaun Watson's name. I not for the off the field shit, obviously, but I hate to do it too, mainly because like he just forced his way out of town. Forget all the off the field stuff, which is really hard to do. But Watson did have elite moments when he was here. Maybe not in playoff games or anything like that, but we can't say like finally the Texans have had an elite quarterback. We were saying the same thing about Watson not that long ago. Let's not forget history so quickly, right? Let's give it another decade or so. More comments. King of all Twitches says confidence is a real energizer. They are definitely very confident right now. If they weren't confident after the win over the Buccaneers, where they win a game that it seems like this organization, this franchise always loses, you beat Joe Burrow on the road. Like, how are you not confident going forward? David Garrett says Robert Woods didn't step out. The Bengals got away with one. Honestly, I didn't look hard enough. I don't think the camera angles that CBS gave us are better than the referees who were on the back line. And I imagine when they did send that to New York to take a second look at it, the only camera angle that they had to work with was that one from CBS. It was just very zoomed out. It would have been difficult, I think, to overturn it no matter what. Lumineer_3 says, draft a star wide receiver. Easier said than done. And beef up the defense. We go into the big game in February. This year. All right. All right. I would not pick them against the Chiefs. I do think that today's Ravens results makes you feel better about the Ravens maybe not being as far away from the rest of the pack as it seemed like they were. They were killing Cleveland in this game. In a game where, speaking of Deshaun Watson, did not play very well. They were up 24-9 early in the third quarter. They were up 31-17 early in the fourth quarter. And they blew that 2-touchdown lead in less than a minute. Deshaun Watson threw a touchdown pass to Elijah Moore, and then there's a pick 6 of Lamar Jackson there. So the Browns are 6-3. The Texans, of course, have that draft pick. The Ravens 7-3. Baltimore, to that point, though, to this game, with some really impressive wins over the Seahawks and the Lions, I think there was a strong argument to be made. Had had things continued the way that they seem to be going for Baltimore, you would have been saying Baltimore's the best team in the AFC coming out of this one. But right now, it's probably Kansas City. The tricky thing for the Texans is going to be catching the Jaguars, but now they're just a game back. And if they win against the Jaguars the week after this week, the game after Thanksgiving, where they get the Jaguars at NRG Stadium, yeah, all right. We're talking about the Texans as a potential AFC South winner. Colts are still hanging around in the playoff picture. They beat my awful ass New England Patriots today. But if we take a look at the playoff standings, the Houston Texans, thanks to a tiebreaker over the Cincinnati Bengals, and I guess over the Buffalo Bills, they would be the last team in the playoffs. How fucking about that? Pittsburgh's the 5 seed. You beat Pittsburgh already. Pittsburgh at 6-3. Man, they're such a boring 6-3, but they are 6-3. The Browns, Dolphins. Am I talking myself into it? Am I talking myself into a Super Bowl? I think it's a little crazy. What else do we have here? CB is talking about the 2 BS calls today. The Woods out of bounds on the touchdown and the CJ Stroud fumble. Forgot about the CJ Stroud fumble. You people, listen, I grew up a Patriots fan. You people, hang on a second. You people bitched about the tuck rule. Oh, it gave rise to the greatest dynasty that sports have ever known. Oh! That's what happens. That's what happens when you bitch about a rule. I forget what happened to the tuck rule. I feel like there's slightly different enforcement of the tuck rule now. There was a change. NFL tuck rule change. The tuck rule was abolished March 20th of 2013 by a 29-1 vote. The Patriots abstained from the vote. Fuck yeah. But anyway, the Patriots suck now, so that's why I got this Texans jacket on. I'm jumping on the bandwagon, baby. Let's go. Mac 34. Since he drafted 2 receivers this past season to prepare for T. Higgins leaving when he's not going to re-sign with Cincy, probably correct. Word deuce, youtube.com/Paul Gallant. Do you think this team could, quote, look past, end quote, the Cardinals? Are they that cocky? I tend to think they're humble enough to focus. Well, if the loss to the Falcons didn't do that, and the loss to the Panthers didn't do that, I don't know what will. I would like to believe that they will not go into any game the rest of the way cocky. And I would imagine that the way the Cardinals are playing right now against the Falcons, they lead 22-17. That's a team that beat the Texans with Kyler Murray back under center. Murray's numbers right now are 17 of 27 for 208 yards and an interception. I think they will take a Kyler Murray-led Cardinals team seriously. I do. I don't think this is going to be overlooked territory. More comments. Twitch.tv/Gallant says. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. Beer Brother 123. Social media has Bill O'Brien going to the Aggies. Yeah, because Jimbo Fisher got fired. Wait. Are you non-ironically? People are seriously doing that? Fuck, that would be so funny if Bill O'Brien ended up as the head coach of the Texas A&M Aggies. Man, I have a hard time seeing him come back to Texas. I don't think that would happen. What else do we have here? YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. Twitch.tv/Gallant says. Tora McJohnson, you need to elaborate on this, sir. The bullshit of Texans football reigns. What do you mean by that? I'm confused. Angel Tapia says, really enjoying these Paul shows after the game. Thank you. I appreciate you. Sim Sam, Texans, Browns in the playoffs. I would love to see it. Here's the thing. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. I think anyone who's watched the Texans long enough, do you want to lose to Deshaun Watson? It's shitty enough that he's coming back to town on fucking Christmas Eve. That sucks. Like, what did they lose? The Browns defense is really, really good. Like, Watson did not play well today, and they won. His numbers look a lot better. At one point in the game, I even tweeted out a graphic. I think he was 6 of 18. Finished 20 of 34 for 213 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. YouTube.com Paul Gallant. David Garrett comments, the hit on Tank was a defenseless player. That should have also been called. You're going to be hard-pressed to get me to side with offenses when defenses are being persecuted across the NFL. Yeah, I said persecuted. They're being persecuted. They are being persecuted. Sorry, I yelled. I don't like that we have babied the NFL to the degree that we have. That was a hospital ball by C.J. Stroud. Dell's a small guy. What the fuck's the defender supposed to do there? Not lay him out? It's a violent game. You're supposed to be scared going over the middle. Luckily, Tank Dell's okay, but I get it. That's the rule. That's the law, but fuck the law. I don't like the law. I'm generally team defense when it comes to football. More comments. Twitch.tv/Gallant says, King of all Twitches asks, did Billy O make Mac Jones cry? I hope so. Oh, God, it's a sad day to be a Patriots fan, guys. I'm so happy that you, the Houston Texans fans out there, and me, because I'm a bandwagoner, I'm so glad that you guys have this. Tora McJohnson says, CJ is not just in the MVP condo. He has won that bitch. Hang on. No, he is not. No, he has not. He just entered it legitimately because he has a statement win on his resume in addition to the statistics. But he's going to need to have a big game against the Jaguars in a couple of weeks. It doesn't seem, by the way, like the Texans are going to have any of their games flexed down the stretch. I saw a tweet from my buddy, DJ Biename, who's going to be in with me on Tuesday from 10:30 to 11 on the Paul Gallant Show, ESPN 97.5 and 92.5, and he said that the only game that might get flexed is Texans-Jets, which fucking sucks. But think about the markets that they are playing the rest of the way. Cardinals, Jaguars, Broncos, which is a 3:05 game, Jets, Titans, Browns, Titans, Colts. None of those markets are moving the needle. It's a shame. It might be until next year that we actually get to see the Houston Texans back in Sunday Night Football. CB comments, this team should be 7-2. Let's get back to the negative, the one nitpick I do have here. It's great that the Texans won a fun statement win in a measuring stick game on the road against a guy like Joe Burrow and a Cincinnati Bengals team that has been to a Super Bowl in the last 2 seasons. But they got to stop playing with their fucking food. I don't want to come off as someone negative, and I purposely waited until late in the show to talk about this. But what the fuck were they doing on those 2 third downs at the end? What in the fuck were they thinking? And if you need a refresher, let's go back. The Texans had just intercepted Joe Burrow in the end zone with 4 minutes to play. They run the ball up the middle, first down. 2nd and 3. They run the ball to Devin Singletary, 2nd down. It's 3rd and 2, and they ran a play-action bootleg. Stroud tried to throw the ball to Tank Dell. I don't know what Stroud saw. He was under pressure on the play. But that was almost a pick 6. Dell tracked him down at the Houston 4. It's legitimately the one thing you can't do there. Taking a sack would have been better. So hopefully this is something that Stroud learns. When you're up 10, you don't have to make the back-breaking play. They just needed to run clock there. They just needed to be conservative. And all you people online, you know who you are. The guys who have been pushing for the Texans to be aggressive and to abandon running the ball altogether. You do have to run to win in this league. And if you run the ball there, either you run 40 seconds off the clock in a game that you're up by 10, or the Bengals have to burn their 3rd and final timeout. Instead, you gave the Bengals a 4-yard drive to score, and then on the very next drive, 1st and 10, you run the ball, Devin Singletary. You run 40 seconds off the clock. 2nd and 6, 3-yard run by Devin Singletary. Second effort. It's 3rd and 3. You're throwing it deep to Tank Dell again. Run the ball and make the Bengals use their last timeout. And the Bengals quickly march down the field. Luckily, 3rd and 13, after Sheldon Rankins sacked Burrow to make it a very difficult goal-to-go situation. I mean, Tyler Boyd, the game was in his hands. Just bounced off his fucking hands. And it's all because the Texans were not conservative there. So, fun win, statement win. It's a measuring stick win on the road against a good team. Don't play with your fucking food. Stop playing with your fucking food, okay? Run the goddamn ball. It's 3rd and 2. Run. 3rd and 3. Run. Yeah, might get stopped. Lame. Not fun. Not sexy. Run the fucking ball and end the game. Thank you. That's all I'm asking for. That's the one nitpick I have for this game. Everything else on this show has been positive. Sunshine. Rainbows. Don't fucking throw the ball like that, though. God, what are you fucking doing? End rant. What else do we have here? YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. Twitch.tv/Gallant says. Trade on Al Good says. The only Browns I want to see in the playoffs is Noah. Yeah. Noah Brown. Fuck, guys. How is he that open? And we talked about his numbers a little bit earlier, but in the last 2 games, he has 13 catches for 325 yards. And if you've watched the Dallas Cowboys recently, Brown was a very good player for Dallas. I'm not going to say great, but whenever I saw Noah Brown on the Cowboys last season, I thought to myself, okay, like he's a good player. It's not a bad pickup. But I did not think he was capable of this kind of explosiveness. He is just wide the fuck open so often. He's got a little run after the catch to him. I mean, he sets up that game-winning field goal by catching that pass and then breaking through tackles like he's a tight end. Huge day for Noah Brown. Do not forget that he was just as important to this game as 2 other guys who are not going to get the same credit as C.J. Stroud. Devin Singletary, who we've talked about. Great game for him. 30 carries for 150 yards. That is a throwback effort. And Sheldon Rankins. I was hoping that Will Anderson, who only had a tackle and 2 pressures, a roughing the passer play on the first play of the game. I thought Will Anderson, if he had a big game, that's how the Texans would win here. I did not think it would be Sheldon Rankins putting together a J.J. Watt impersonation. 3 sacks, 2 tackles for a loss, 4 quarterback hits. I mean, that was a hell of a game by him. I didn't know he was capable of that. What a signing that is by Nick Caserio this offseason. Jonathan Grenard had the other sack. He's got 7 on the year. But Sheldon Rankins, Noah Brown, and Devin Singletary are your 3. Hey, they're not C.J. Stroud, but they're also pretty fucking good Houston Texans of the game. Luis said at one point in the game, I thought this was another one of those games we used to always lose. Dare I say we ain't type of that football team anymore. Eyeball emoji. Ain't that the truth? More comments. Nobody comments. Refs kind of let the Texans get roughed up. CJ took at least 1 headshot. Yeah, but, I mean, I didn't like the Will Anderson roughing the passer call when he hit the top of Joe Burrow's head. Like, they're wearing helmets. It did come down hard, but I don't know. You're complaining to the wrong person about rules that are meant to benefit the offense. Mac34 says, how about Joe Espada finally getting a shot with the Stros? I'm all for it. We'll talk about Joe Espada tomorrow. How do you think, asks Word Deuce, youtube.com/Paul Gallant, do you think his performance today jeopardizes Dameon Pierce's position as RB1 going forward? Well, I think if Pierce is there, Pierce would still get looks. But yeah, it's very clear that this offense and the running game is a lot better running the zone scheme with Singletary than it is Pierce. And here's the thing with Pierce. Pierce is not a patient runner. Pierce wants to explode into the line of scrimmage and run through people. And if you're trying to make it work in this offense, you have to be a little more patient. There is a part of me that wishes the Texans would find a way to exploit that skill set of Dameon Pierce. Easier said than done, perhaps. When you've got a zone blocking offensive line for the ground game and then all of a sudden you're changing it up from time to time. But it does feel like he's just not a fit right now. Sucks when you're not a fit. Been there, done that. That was me at the old Texans flagship. Tormac Johnson says the Texans got lucky today. There's always luck involved in a win, but you're right. You are right. More comments. YouTube.com/Paul Kalana. Oh, wow. All the complainers are out here now. CV, that long ball to Tank was all while the flat was wide, the F open. Yeah. Yeah, on that 3rd down and 3. That was the second to last drive here. Beast mode loading comments. Rookie offensive coordinator and rookie quarterback. Hopefully they'll learn and run the ball, especially when the game is on the line. I agree. Well, Lucario comments. Yeah, deep balls when you need 3 yards is dumb. Dumb. King of all Twitches, I don't think Pierce lost his job per se, but I do think that Devin Singletary is the better fit. What else do we have here? Joe Briones. Glad I found you again, Paulie G. Listen to you on nights before I moved out of the H-Town. Case Keenum, best backup. Hell yeah, dude. All these stories about Case Keenum, I guess like going out to dinner with CJ Stroud, who's the 5th wheel. I guess Davis Mills and his lady are going out, and Case Keenum and his wife are going out, and Stroud's the 5th wheel. Been there, being the 5th wheel. That's fun. Hashtag not. LA says, sir, you say biggest win every week. Yeah, because today is the greatest day of your life. That's how you're supposed to look at things. And last week was the biggest win of the year for the Houston Texans because CJ Stroud had a last-minute touchdown drive. This time, you beat a good team. So, yeah, this game, a bigger win than the last week. And then guess what? Next week, biggest game of the year. And the game after that, biggest game of the year. Just like for you today is the greatest day of your life. It's the biggest day of your life. But tomorrow, also, greatest day of your life, biggest day of your life. See? Positive vibes. That's the mindset that we take going forward. And it's all thanks to CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. They saved me. They brought me back from the abyss. They made me believe in many things going forward. Love, life, football, the American dream. They've changed my life. What other comments do we have here? Anime X Dude comments. Brown, Schultz, even Nico are good now because they actually have a quarterback that enhances their strengths. That's the difference. Who would have thought that upgrading from Davis Mills would make things better? King of all Twitches comments. The Shanahan offense allows for mid-wide receivers to have days. Yeah, but you have to be good after the catch. I guess I'm surprised that Noah Brown is as good after the catch as he is, because if you take a look at the 49ers and how good they are after the catch, it's Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. Those guys can catch and run. You would not think that about Nico Collins. You would not think that about Noah Brown. To this point, John Mechie, no. Tank Dell is somebody that you think is going to look very good after the catch. King of all Twitches is saying Dallas is murdering the New York Giants. Yeah, I saw that spread. I think the Cowboys were 16-point favorites. And I was like, no way. No way. And yeah, this is not close. I don't know if they heard Nate Burleson at after the at the end of the CBS postgame show saying that the Texans might be the best football team in Texas. But maybe he did. Yeah, they're up 42-7, and the fourth quarter hasn't even begun in that game. Good God, that is a murder and a half. Meanwhile, Atlanta has taken the lead on Arizona, 23-22. More comments, youtube.com/Paul Gallant or twitch.tv/Gallant says, General Mills wouldn't have thrown that pick at the end. Yeah, that's true. He would have taken the sack. That actually is true. He would have been sacked, and sacked quickly. What else do we have? Milan Lave 21 says Jaguars 6-3, Texans 5-4, Colts 5-5, Titans 3-6. AFC South, baby. AFC South. King of all Twitches says I'm getting censored. Well, there are certain things that you say that I sometimes I think I'm in radio mode and I'm not in Wild West of the internet mode. So it could be a PG show. I try to swear less, but I just have a hard time not swearing when I talk. How do I have a job in radio? A great question, everybody. So there you go, guys. CJ Stroud, MVP candidate right now. I think he's definitely one of the top quarterbacks in the game. Top 5, top 3. I'd say top 3. That's how far I'll go. And we'll see what happens going forward the rest of the way, but he's in the MVP conversation, and this is just a tremendous win. This is probably, to go back to what I was saying a little bit ago about like the biggest game of your life, biggest game of their lives, biggest game of the season. This probably will be the biggest regular season game of the season for the Texans because, as we've said, this is the most legitimate AFC team, even though they're in fourth place in the AFC North and have their backs against the wall. This is the most legitimate team that they've played to this point. We'll see what happens. The Browns are probably the toughest game left on the schedule, or Jaguars, take your pick. It's weird to think about the Browns and the Jaguars being two of the top teams in the AFC, but this was a huge victory for them. It's a learning lesson opportunity as well because don't play with your fucking food. Don't do the cutesy shit when you're up 2 scores. And it wasn't just C.J. Stroud today. It was Noah Brown. It was Sheldon Rankins. It was Devin Singletary. I'm very happy with this game, and we'll talk about it more on Monday's radio show, ESPN 97.5 and 92.5, in case you ever listen to the radio. I am on from 10 to noon, and there is a show podcast for that. Speaking of this show, if you haven't already, you're a first-time comer here. Hope you appreciated the show. A like, a subscription. That's dope. Y'all mean twitch.tv/Gallant says or youtube.com/Paul Gallant. Subscribe, like, every little bit of support means a great deal. Help me feed my cat. It's also available wherever you get your podcasts. It'll be up in a little bit if you want to listen to the full audio version of this. It is, after a while, me just responding to a lot of comments that I have to figure out how to actually broadcast on the broadcast itself. I used to have a system to do it. I have to add something new, I think, to bring them back so that way you can see what I'm saying over the course of the show. But you ever have a question? GallantSays@gmail.com, and you can, of course, listen wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. If you haven't liked and subscribed in that way already, do it. Leave a review. Say something nice. Say something mean. I don't care because I love you. And today is the greatest day of not just my life, it's of your life as well. Because the Houston Texans are 5-4, and C.J. Stroud, their quarterback, is a legit MVP candidate. So long. Farewell. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of your Sunday. We'll be back at it tomorrow night on the Twitch. We'll probably be talking, and YouTube, we'll be talking about Joe Espada, I imagine. And how it really doesn't matter who the Astros hire as a general manager. Excuse me, not a general manager. They already have a general manager. He talks too much. Paul, you're shoving your foot in your mouth the same way Dana Brown does. We'll talk about Joe Espada as the new manager of the Houston Astros. Until then.